The world is facing an unprecedented energy crisis. Fuel shortages are impacting every corner of the globe, from bustling cities to rural communities. The cost of gasoline, diesel, and natural gas has skyrocketed, sending shockwaves through the global economy. Empty pumps and long lines have become a common sight, a stark reminder of our dependence on fossil fuels. This crisis is not merely an inconvenience, it is a threat to our way of life. The immediate impacts are impossible to ignore. Transportation costs have surged, driving up the price of goods and services. Businesses are struggling to cope with rising energy bills, forcing some to scale back operations or even close their doors. Families are feeling the pinch at the pump and on their utility bills, leaving many struggling to make ends meet. This crisis is a wake-up call. It exposes the fragility of our current energy system, heavily reliant on finite and polluting fossil fuels. It underscores the urgent need to transition to cleaner, more sustainable energy sources. The question is, will we heed the warning? While the soaring price of gasoline dominates headlines, the crisis extends far beyond the gas pump. Diesel, the lifeblood of global commerce, is also in short supply, driving up transportation costs for everything from food to medicine. This has severe implications for supply chains, threatening shortages and further price hikes. Natural gas, used for heating homes and powering industries, is facing similar constraints. In Europe, heavily reliant on Russian gas, prices have reached record highs, raising concerns about energy security as winter approaches. The crisis is a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of global energy markets and the far-reaching consequences of disruptions. The shortage of these essential fuels has a cascading effect on various sectors. Agriculture, manufacturing, and transportation are all heavily reliant on affordable energy. The rising costs are squeezing profit margins, threatening jobs, and contributing to inflation. This is not just an energy crisis, it is a global economic crisis in the making. American consumers are feeling the pain of the fuel crisis acutely. The cost of filling up a gas tank has reached record highs in many parts of the country. This financial burden disproportionately affects low- and middle-income families, who spend a larger portion of their income on transportation. The rising cost of gasoline is not just an inconvenience, it is forcing families to make difficult choices. Some are cutting back on essential goods and services, while others are dipping into savings or taking on debt to make ends meet. The stress and uncertainty are taking a toll on mental health and well-being. The ripple effects of high fuel prices extend beyond the gas station. The cost of groceries, clothing, and other essential goods is rising as businesses pass on their increased transportation costs to consumers. This fuels inflation, eroding purchasing power and further straining household budgets. The American consumer, once the engine of the global economy, is now facing a crisis of affordability. Industry leaders and experts have been sounding the alarm about the looming fuel crisis for years. They have warned of dwindling reserves, underinvestment in renewable energy, and the geopolitical risks associated with dependence on fossil fuels. Their predictions, once dismissed by some as alarmist, have now become a harsh reality. At recent industry summits and conferences, the mood has been one of urgency and concern. Executives from major oil and gas companies have acknowledged the challenges of meeting global demand, citing factors such as the war in Ukraine, supply chain disruptions, and the lack of new exploration and production. They have also emphasized the need for a transition to cleaner energy sources, but cautioned that this will require significant investment and time. The International Energy Agency, a leading intergovernmental organization, has warned that the world is heading for a global energy shock. In its latest report, the IEA calls for urgent action to increase energy efficiency, accelerate the deployment of renewable energy technologies, and reduce global dependence on fossil fuels. The message is clear. The time for complacency is over. We need bold and decisive action to avert a full-blown energy crisis. Russia's shadow geopolitics and the fuel crisis. The ongoing war in Ukraine has exposed the fragility of the global energy system and the geopolitical risks associated with dependence on fossil fuels. Russia, a major exporter of oil and gas, has become a weapon in the conflict, using its energy leverage to exert pressure on Western nations that have imposed sanctions. The European Union, heavily reliant on Russian gas, is particularly vulnerable. Russia's decision to reduce gas flows through the Nord Stream 1 pipeline has sent shockwaves through the bloc, raising fears of energy shortages and economic recession as winter approaches. The crisis has exposed the dangers of relying on a single supplier for a critical resource. The conflict in Ukraine is a tragic reminder of the interconnectedness of energy security and geopolitical stability. It underscores the need for diversification of energy sources, increased investment in renewable energy, and enhanced energy efficiency measures. The world must move away from its dependence on fossil fuels, not only to address the climate crisis, but also to mitigate the risks of future conflicts. A house divided, the political battleground of energy. The fuel crisis has become a political battleground, with lawmakers divided on how to address soaring costs and supply chain disruptions. Some advocate for increasing domestic oil and gas production to ease prices and reduce reliance on foreign suppliers. Others prioritize transitioning to renewable energy sources, seeing the crisis as a chance to shift away from fossil fuels. The debate is polarized, with each side accusing the other of exploiting the crisis for political gain. This gridlock hinders progress, leaving consumers and businesses to bear the brunt of the crisis. The fuel crisis presents an opportunity for bipartisan cooperation and forward-thinking leadership. The ripple effect economic consequences of the fuel crisis. The economic consequences of the fuel crisis are far-reaching and multifaceted. The rising cost of energy is a major driver of inflation, eroding purchasing power and slowing economic growth. Businesses across all sectors are facing higher operating costs, forcing them to raise prices, cut jobs, or reduce investments. The transportation sector is particularly hard hit, as airlines, trucking companies, and shipping firms grapple with skyrocketing fuel costs. This is disrupting supply chains, leading to shortages and further price increases for goods and services. The manufacturing sector is also feeling the pinch, as energy-intensive industries like steel, aluminum, and chemicals face soaring production costs. The fuel crisis is exacerbating existing economic inequalities. Low- and middle-income households, who spend a larger portion of their income on energy, are disproportionately affected by rising prices. This is pushing more families into poverty and straining social safety nets. The crisis is a stark reminder of the interconnectedness of energy, the economy, and social well-being. Navigating the storm, potential solutions, and long-term strategies. Addressing the fuel crisis requires a multifaceted approach that addresses both the immediate symptoms and the underlying causes. In the short term, governments can provide temporary relief to consumers and businesses through measures such as tax breaks, subsidies, and direct payments. However, these measures should be targeted and temporary, designed to mitigate the immediate impact without exacerbating long-term challenges. In the long term, the only sustainable solution is to transition to a cleaner, more diversified, and resilient energy system. This requires massive investments in renewable energy sources such as solar, wind, geothermal, and hydropower. It also necessitates improving energy efficiency across all sectors, from buildings to transportation to industry. Investing in energy storage technologies such as batteries and pumped hydro is crucial to address the intermittent nature of renewable energy sources. Modernizing the electric grid to accommodate higher penetration of renewables is also essential. Furthermore, fostering international cooperation on energy research, development, and deployment can accelerate the transition to a sustainable energy future. The global fuel crisis is a wake-up call, a stark reminder of the fragility of our current energy system. The time for complacency is over. We need bold and decisive action to avert a full-blown energy crisis. Governments must prioritize the transition to clean, renewable energy sources. This requires enacting policies that incentivize investment in renewables, phase out fossil fuel subsidies, and put a price on carbon emissions. Investing in energy efficiency measures, modernizing the electric grid, and supporting research and development of new energy technologies are crucial steps. This is a collective responsibility. Businesses must prioritize sustainability and invest in renewable energy sources. Consumers can reduce energy use at home, choose fuel-efficient vehicles, and support policies that promote clean energy. The transition to a sustainable energy future requires collective effort, but the benefits, a cleaner environment, a more stable climate, and a secure energy future are worth it. The time to act is now.